There are times a man bears with him throughout his life. Not in scars or tales, but in the manner in which a man's eyes reflect after having witnessed death. Tom Delaney once saw that gaze in war, reflected back at him from shattered mirrors and shattered men. But not here, not on his peaceful ranch. Not beneath the scorching Arizona sun where air burned as thick as used gunpowder. She knelt, bleeding, her dress ripped like she'd struggled for her life, or perhaps hadn't been given the option to. Smears of dirt covered her arms. Her hair stuck to her face, wet from sweat and terror. Her hands shook, and her eyes, they weren't hollow. They were absent, that way people disappear while still alive. The type of dead that wouldn't halt a heartbeat but left the soul bare. She didn't cry out, didn't weep, didn't even bestow a name. Whispered only, "Please, no more pain." Tom wasn't a savior type. Not anymore. He dwelled well past where the pavement ended. In a home where quiet had accumulated like dust and laughter was just something remembered. He hadn't opened his gate for more than 2 years. But something inside him turned. He didn't say a word, didn't pause. Just walked straight to her, beyond the guilt, beyond the fear. And when he got there, saw the blood and bruises, and the fear she tried to conceal, he did something surprising. Even to himself. He picked her up, carefully, as if she were fragments of broken glass and dried ash. Turned wordlessly and took her into that silent dead house. No judgments. No questions. No return. Because Tom Delaney knew better than anyone. Sometimes, God doesn't send heroes. Sometimes, he sends the broken. What followed? That's when the storm really started. Tom didn't sleep that night, just sat on the porch, observing the desert pretend to sleep under a sky full of unconcerned stars. Inside, she wrapped herself on the old couch, wrapped in his army blanket, the one that remained scented with firewood and years past. She hadn't said anything since her whisper in the dirt. But Tom didn't require words. Not yet. He'd seen enough. She was bruised. She was running. And someone had done that to her. He saw the bruises, the kind no tumble would give. The kind a man lays on a woman when he thinks no one will ever see. Tom had spent his entire life boarding up the rooms inside his heart. But that night something cracked open. By dawn she was still there. He cooked breakfast, lumpy eggs, bitter coffee. She didn't say anything. Sat with her knees to her chest as if attempting to fold herself into nothingness. But when he sat down across from her and put a cup of coffee in front of her, black, hot, plain, she accepted it. Her hands were shaking. Her eyes never met his. But she consumed. And that, it seemed, meant the world. Later, he put food in the horses and left the front door open intentionally. No chance. No lax. No questions. And when he returned, she was still there. Sitting on the floor, following the grain in the wood as if it contained secrets known only to her. He stood there silently, watching only. Then, at last, she spoke. One word. Why? He didn't answer right away. Maybe because he didn't know. Maybe because it hurt to admit the truth. But eventually, he said, "Because I've seen monsters, and you're not one of them." She didn't cry, but her face softened, just slightly, like a tight knot loosening after years. 3 days after, Tom discovered a letter in the mailbox. No return address, only the sheriff's office seal pressed on the back. He opened it on the gate itself, sun already blazing on his neck. Carl Benson, Maya's stepfather, had made a complaint. Declared she was not stable. Declared she'd fled during one of her episodes. Declared he wanted her to come back. Tom read it quietly, eyes tightening. He didn't require a uniform to smell the truth. Men like Carl were always hard to miss, the type who smiled on Sunday morning but had cruelty in their pockets. Maya was outside at the back, bare feet and all, feeding chickens. She giggled softly when the rooster left her alone once. For an instant, she was a girl once more. Tom stepped inside, folded the letter, and placed it softly on the table. She noticed it, didn't touch it, didn't ask. But her face paled, as if all the blood in her had suddenly vanished. She spoke again, almost a whisper. "Please, no more pain." Tom didn't answer right away. Just lit the stove, brewed fresh coffee, and stared into the fire like it might speak for him. When he finally did speak, it was low and calm, like the wind before a storm. "I'll take care of it." And what happened next? Well, folks still talk about that part. That evening, Tom filled up his old truck, packed in his rifle without saying a word, and drove straight to Mesa. The sheriff's station went silent when he entered, as though the desert had walked in with him. He did not stutter. He spelled everything out: names, dates, bruises. Every fact Maya could not utter, Tom presented in cold, hard facts. And then he announced it plain: if Carl Benson ever set foot on his property again, they'd do well to bring more than a pair of cuffs. And the thing is, when Tom Delaney speaks, folks listen. He came back hours later, coated in dust and silence, but standing taller than he had in years. Maya was on the porch. Her hands trembled at the sight of him, but not her smile. "You're safe now," he said, and for the first time since she collapsed on his land, she believed him. Stories such as this do not always make headlines. But if this one reached you today, perhaps that is because someone out there still needs to know that they, too, can be safe again. And if this story resonates somewhere deep, hang in there with us. Subscribe. There are more stories that need to be told. Something changed after that night. Not everything, not all at once, but enough. Maya ceased to jump at the crack of the floorboards. She ceased to sleep in her boots. She awoke with the dawn, tended to the chickens before even Tom rolled out of bed, learned to repair saddles, clean rifles, and hang laundry so the wind wouldn't turn it into knots. One morning, Tom overheard her humming. Not a tune he knew, just the gentle, wordless hum of it, as if her bones were remembering how to be alive. He said nothing, just stood in the doorway and let it wrap around him. There were better days. Laughter that didn't come from borrowed moments. A new red coat on the old barn. A creaking porch swing that began again. But healing doesn't come in a straight line. There were nights Maya slept screaming, and other nights she didn't sleep at all. One time, Tom caught her kneeling outside at 2 in the morning, barefoot in the dirt. He didn't ask why, just wrapped her in a blanket and sat beside her until the horizon began to glow. She began writing again. Tom never looked, never asked, but every page she filled seemed to lighten her shoulders a bit. He had no idea what he was to her. A landlord? A watchdog? A ghost who made good coffee? One afternoon, however, she hollered from the corral, "Hey, cowboy!" He jerked his head up, and she smiled wide, radiant, whole. And that's when he knew. Perhaps it wasn't a rescue at all. Perhaps it was a return. For both of them. Some folks think stories like this don't matter. But if you're still here, maybe you're one of the few who believes broken things can still be beautiful. It happened on a Tuesday, one of those dry, bone-hot days where the heat feels stitched into your skin. Tom was in the back pasture checking the cattle when he heard it. Hoofbeats. Fast.
Urgent.
Wrong. By the time he arrived at the gate, a cloud of dust was already up. One man on horseback. Young. Bold. Armed. "I'm here for the girl," he told him. Tom didn't bat an eyelash. "You're not," he told him. The man climbed down, moved forward. "She's going with me. I don't care what you think." Tom didn't move, the air between them as thick as a thunderhead. Then the man put his hand to his belt. But he never got the opportunity to draw. Tom closed the gap in an instant, seized his wrist, twisted with all his might. The man let out a yelp and landed face first on the ground. When he looked up, Tom was already turning away. "Next time, I won't be so polite." Tom recounted it to Maya later that evening. She simply nodded.
No tears. No alarm.
Then she looked at him, really looked, and something clicked. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. Not out of fear, not even gratitude, but something softer, warmer. "I'm not afraid anymore," she whispered. And Tom, he realized he wasn't either. Weeks rolled on. Maya laughed louder, sang in the mornings, walked barefoot without flinching. Tom grinned more, spoke more, walked taller, as if the burden on his shoulders had finally eased its hold. They never said things like, love, but sometimes things shouldn't be. Sometimes it's in the way she filled his cup, or the way he mended her saddle without prompting. Not every love tale begins with roses and fireworks. Some begin in muck, in quiet, in suffering, and those are the kind that endure. So if this story resonated with you, leave a like. If you think the world still needs stories such as this, subscribe. And before you scroll on, I ask you, have you ever battled for someone you hardly knew, just because something deep within you sensed they were worth it? Have you ever rescued someone, only to find out that they were rescuing you too? Leave your story below. We read them all, because sometimes your story is the thing somebody else needs to read.